Hi, everyone out there in the world of YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, stopping by, checking out the channel. My name is Jacqueline Anderson. So before I get started, I would like to say thank you for watching the video, sharing the video, and leaving a comment. I have a distinguished guest today. So you know that means she is a certified public accountant. So in addition to sharing her CPA exam journey, we'll touch on her accounting career and how she landed in international tax. So my guest today, distinguished guest, is CPA Brandi Samuel. Thank you, Brandi, for being here and agreeing to sit down and share your journey.
No problem. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Great. And before I get started, I will say I want to take this time to thank Mine Manobi for making this connection and introducing us online and suggesting that you be featured on the channel to tell your unique stories. So again, thank you for accepting the invitation.
No problem.
All right, we'll jump in and get started as I usually do. What's your name on your birth certificate?
My name on my birth certificate is Brandi Milan Lucier.
Okay, that's interesting. A long way from Brandi Samuel.
Yes, that's why I'm okay with Samuel, because they used to mess my last name up all the time. So
this is a little easier for everybody.
Samuel's a little easier.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you remember? Don't mind sharing how old you were or what year it was when you became a licensed CPA?
I became a licensed CPA in 2012, but I actually finished my exam in 2009. And I guess I just didn't realize the seriousness of turning the paperwork in to get the license. I didn't. I finished my exam, and it wasn't until I was getting promoted to senior while I was at PwC that my coach said, didn't you pass the exam? Can you get licensed so this can like be a part of your promotion package? I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, well, this is something new. Well, we got to kind of switch gears now that you started with that, because most of us, that's what we're ultimately trying to be and looking forward to submitting that paperwork. And somewhat like me had it ready in advance, just waiting to get that notification that we had signed.
I don't know if the exam was like the seriousness of it, to be honest. And I don't know, how when we previously talked about the low numbers of CPAs in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in school, the curriculum was set up for me to be a CPA, but I don't know if it was like this thing that it was so like big deal to obtain. I didn't know. I didn't go in extremely prepared, so it was like, oh, I passed the exam.
Okay, and your next step was, let me submit this paperwork for licensure. That was not even at the forefront of your mind.
Not at all.
So you definitely have to tell that part of the story when you get into this. All righty. So where are you licensed? Only in Georgia? Or you?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm born and raised in Georgia, licensed in Georgia. That's where I'm licensed. Yeah, I only practice here in Georgia.
Okay, and you said you were licensed in 2012.
Mm-hmm. My CPA number is CPA 030244.
Where did you go to school that set you up and prepped you to pass the exam?
But not the license, right? I went to school at HBCU in New Orleans, Louisiana, Dillard University.
Okay.
Yes, DU. And to be completely honest, I mean, I had instrumental people in my life. My dad was actually a tax accountant. My dad's like, I grew up with my dad doing taxes, sitting at his living room table. And I didn't know I was kind of being groomed to be kind of in his path. And it wasn't until after I passed the exam, he was like, oh, you need to go get your CPA. You need to go the corporate route, all the things that he didn't get a chance to do, because he never got his enrolled agents or his CPA, but he's an extremely smart man, ran a business, like fed us for years off that. So, but that's how I don't know. What was the question you asked me? Where I go to school?
Right.
Yeah.
Man, so and that was through your dad. He
was
instrumental and influential.
Yes, through my dad. And then when I got to Dillard, I had a professor who is, she's, I guess you would say, slightly famous in New Orleans. She is like the financial commentator on the local news station in New Orleans. Yeah, she was extremely influential in my life. Her name is Kimberly Washington.
Okay.
She goes by Kim Sense. She's written several different financial steps books
Mm-hmm.
that are, being sold in the bookstores. And I mean, I still call on her to this day, and she still calls on me as well
Oh.
as the student. Yes, and so so I obviously got my roots with my dad, and then when I got to Dillard University, a teacher, Kimberly Washington, we call her Professor Washington. She was the one that was really instrumental in making sure that I at least knew to take the exam.
Right. Okay. So would you consider her a mentor to this
Oh,
day?
definitely.
Or she took you under her wing then, or that was just her role in the business school, everybody, or did you just make a special connection with her?
I think a lot of people make special connections with her. She was just that type of woman. I remember she was just this little, bad type of woman, and she was always put together. I mean, she was very young. I saw something that she had that was very attainable. And to
Okay.
this day, if I text her right now, she'll pick up, like, she'll say, Brandi, what you doing? So she was a mentor to me and so many other people at the school. We did a lot of things under her.
Okay. So going to Dillard, what was your major and degree or degrees?
So at Dillard, my degree was in accounting. I got my undergraduate degree in accounting.
Mm. And did you go on, or have you gone on to get master's or doctorate?
Yeah.
What else?
So after I got my degree in accounting, I guess to answer the question directly, yes, I went on to Georgia State to get my master's of taxation, but it's kind of like a little story in between that.
Tell it.
I don't want to get ahead of your questions, so just, okay.
This is a conversation.
Okay. Yeah, because it's kind of like things just kind of are connected together. So the year I was at Dillard, during the time I was there was when Hurricane Katrina hit.
Okay.
And that really rocked a lot of people's world. So Hurricane Katrina hit, devastated. I went to LSU for what we call, if you were there during that time, it's called your Katrina semester. And so then I went back to New Orleans, and when we were finally, the next year, I decided to go back to Dillard. And our accounting department was very small and close-knit. And at the time, we might have been about 10 students at the time, because, the school was just devastated from the storm. Miss Washington comes in, becomes a professor at Dillard University. And at the time, the city was being rebuilt.
Gotcha.
And there were a lot of people coming to the city, a lot of construction workers and people like entrepreneurs that needed certain things to get bonds in order to do work in the city. So what we did at Dillard, we got a grant. She helped us, Ms. Washington got the students together, and we put together what we called our own accounting group, where we helped people in the community. We looked at their books, got them set up so that they can then go on to be, and it was free services, obviously, because we weren't CPAs. So it was she was a CPA. And we basically help people in the community get on their feet so they can get these certifications from the city to be construction workers in the city, because the city would give them money to do the work, but they had to be in order. And so they came to Dillard to do that. And then the other thing we did while we were at Dillard, the way they taught our tax class, it was another professor there. She ran the VITA program. We didn't know it at the time what we were doing, but she basically taught our individual tax class, using the VITA program. And at the end of the course, after our final exam, we had to actually put in hours in the clinic. Again, people coming in from the community to do their tax work at Dillard University. And I did.
I'll say, for those who don't know, VITA is the volunteer
taxes
to do taxes, individual tax for those in the community, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And she taught our class based on that. Again, we didn't really know what it was. We were just taking a tax class. And I did my few hours that we were supposed to do, and I fell in love with it. I was asking everybody, let me do their tax. I don't know how to do this for my exam. And at the time, I was working at the Doubletree Hotel, and the bellman let me do his taxes. He was an older guy, and to this day, he still mails me his paperwork for me to do his taxes every year. And so Dillard University was extremely influential in me getting my CPA exam, and then even me studying for the CPA exam and becoming an accountant, and then further on becoming a tax accountant. So Yeah.
Did you go into undergrad your freshman year knowing you wanted to major in accounting?
I
Even though,
did. I
okay.
told you about my dad, and then also I started working at my church. I guess it was just in me. I mean, I would bug the finance team to let me help them, and then they finally let me open up an envelope. And then after they let me open up an envelope, I was like, "Can I count the money?" And then they let me count the money, and I went on to help become like the financial. I'm on the finance team like probably for life now. I mean, so it was just in me, I guess. I knew I wanted to be an accountant.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to ask you a sidebar question with that working in the church. Did you see too much? Did you find yourself knowing a little bit too much than a regular parishioner in the church from that angle?
Yeah, I mean, you would.
Because I will say from my personal experience, I was like, I don't think I need to be involved with this because I might question the decision.
Oh no, I guess it was. I get where you're going with that, but I think it was like a level of a maturity that I had at a very young age because I started when I was like 12 years old.
Okay.
So it was one of those things that the older people, they were like, what happens in this finance room, you do not go out and tell people's business. So I began to learn who people were from their names, but I didn't necessarily know who they were, like their faces.
Gotcha.
And so to me, it was just like, I learned at an early age, you know, this is private business. You don't go telling people's business out in the street. And so, but yeah,
people like,
yes, yes, I know exactly what you mean by that. But so yeah, I went to school knowing that I wanted to be an accountant, and then so to kind of tie together what you were saying about asking the question about my master's. Again, while we were at Dillard during that Hurricane Katrina semester with the group of accounting students, we were like, how do we get jobs? We're about to graduate. That was my sophomore year was Katrina, so we came back was our junior year. We packed up in the car because we didn't have, I think Ms. Washington couldn't go with us to the NABA conference. We packed up, she didn't know we went. So she knows, she found out afterwards. But we got in there and we all went down we drove to Atlanta. I think New Orleans is actually in the other region for Texas, but we went to Atlanta because I was like, I'm from Atlanta. Okay. I know Atlanta. I know the Atlanta chapter. I mean, the NABA regional chapter in Atlanta. They'll have this big conference. That's how we get our jobs.
The Southeastern Conference.
The Southeastern Conference. We all packed up in the car, and I think one of the girls' moms like acted as a chaperone for us. Well, we didn't know she was a chaperone. I think she found out we was going, and she decided like, I can't let these kids go down there themselves. And we all went down there, and that's how we got our jobs. I mean, I ended up getting a job with PwC. And then I thought I was going to start working right away. And that's when the mortgage bubble burst in 2010.
Okay.
And they said, you got to pay for your master's on your own. And you can't start until you have your master's. That was the new rule. That was the way when all the other accounting firms were sending offers after internships, PwC said, we'll let you keep your internship, but you got to have a master's before you start. It was their way of, I guess, cutting funds and cutting back. So I went and got my master's. I had always planned to get it, but I didn't plan on paying for it myself.
And you went straight after undergrad at this point?
Yeah, I had to. Well, I started in January of 2010 is when I started. Yeah. No, 2009. Because I graduated undergrad in 2008. And then I had my summer internship, and then that fall, I had to figure out what to do, so I couldn't start until January of 2009.
Gotcha. So you had come back home by then.
Yep, I did my internship in Atlanta, PwC Atlanta. Because remember I told you I went to NABA and got my job there, and then I started.
Oh, well, talk about that experience too, and being part of that organization, NABA, National Association of Black Accountants.
Yes.
Those workshops and trainings that they do through the Southeastern Conference for students.
Oh my goodness, NABA was so influential. I mean, I got several, like at least 2 internships with major companies. One was in Minnesota, and then the last one was with PwC before I started my actual career. I remember, I think one of the things that sticks out for me the most with NABA is that the way they basically prepare you for the corporate world. Okay. I remember coming down for my interview, and this was the first year of NABA, the Hurricane Katrina one. And I had on this little cute little outfit coming down there, no blazer, nothing. I was just literally green to the corporate world. This lady pulled me to the side. She said, where you going? And she was like, no, you don't. Go upstairs and change your clothes. I was like, what you mean? She said, this is what you wear when you get the job. This is not what you wear when you're trying to get the job.
Really?
Yes. And I remember going upstairs and I changed and put a blazer on, came back. I mean, it was just, I just felt like it was like a motherly, like family type of thing. It wasn't any like, oh, look what she got on. Mm-hmm. She don't know no better. It was like, oh, she doesn't know better. I'll make sure she does. And I'll never forget that. I don't even remember who the lady was. She didn't know me. I didn't know her. It was just one of those, this is how you represent yourself. She was looking out. And so I'm just grateful to NABA for those opportunities. I'm grateful to NABA for exposing me to all of those different companies that I probably would have never had an opportunity to be exposed to or get a job from. So
Dillard had a pretty active chapter.
Yes, we did. We had a chapter, but we're a small school. We're a small Methodist school. We weren't probably not as active. I think they ended up realizing they weren't supposed to be in the southeastern region. We went there because I was from Atlanta, and I was like, I know for a fact that they have a regional conference that we need to go to. I think later on they got reactivated active again into their actual region.
Gotcha. Okay, which that is a pretty big conference in Atlanta. I think the Charlotte or somewhere in North Carolina actually hosted, but they do it here in Atlanta, and I volunteered a couple of times.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, but the Sheraton Hotel, that's where it was, like in the fall, September or something every year. Mm-hmm. It's a really big deal.
I think at the by Perimeter Mall.
Okay, that's where it was.
Yeah.
That's good to hear the importance of being aligned with different organizations and how beneficial you felt NABA was in your career so far. So are you active now in NABA or any organizations, I will ask? Or
I'm on roll, right? But I'm not as active as I need to be. I mean, especially, me just telling you how active it was and how influential it was in my life. Mm. I almost feel like I did a disservice. I was active a little bit afterwards when I first started my career, and I started mentoring some girls. To your point, this whole channel, like I remember this one girl was like, "You from Atlanta? You from Bankhead? And you a CPA?" And it was like, I didn't know I could do that. Because I probably didn't say it at the very beginning, but I grew up on the west side of Atlanta, Frederick Douglass High School.
All right.
From Bankhead, and a lot of people don't realize, like, oh wow, she was very shocked. And so I mentored her for a few years. I think she ended up at Norfolk Southern. But Dillard was extremely influential. It was extremely influential in my life. So
gotcha. Okay, so once you came out of school, have you always worked at the Big Four?
Yeah, so as soon as when I graduated from Dillard and I did my internship at my final internship at PwC, got my master's and went there. I worked at PwC for about 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. And so I was in the international group and the global, they called it global structure at the time. Companies have all kind of names for departments. But it was the mergers and acquisitions and international tax group.
Okay.
I did that for about 4.5 years, and then I got engaged.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And then it was time for me to kind of transition because that working those hours were really tough.
Is it brutal? I've never worked in the Big Four, but I've heard these crazy stories, horrific stories where you put in 60, 80 hours. Is it true?
Yeah, but I think at the time it was like I didn't have any. I mean, I wasn't married. I wasn't had no kids. Okay. It's me living in my mama's house. And so I just remember the phone call one night. My husband, my fiance then, it was like 3:00 in the morning. I was still at the office, and he was like, "Is this really about to be our life?" And I was like, "Oh, it's time for me to transition." But I wasn't ready to leave public accounting.
Okay.
I went on to I looked for another job, and I came to where I am now, Wyndham Brandon. So it's still a public accounting firm, and it's interesting. I sometimes still am up late at night, but it's because I take time in the middle of my work day to be a mom and be a wife, and then I get back on later on. Versus when I was young, I was just working all the way through.
Right, which is what you should do before you do have all those responsibilities and life takes over. Yeah. Really get all of that out the way, or build your bank up, make all the money, and pull back. So having that flexibility, did you always have that, or did this come about with the pandemic and being allowed to work from home more often, or did this firm allow you to totally
Oh,
offer that flexibility?
I was always very flexible. This firm is extremely flexible. I
Okay.
mean, I think I've always had that flexibility. So when we were trying to transition because of the pandemic, it wasn't as tough of a transition from regarding work. It was tough because the kids were home.
24/7. Okay, but well, that's good to know, because a lot of us who haven't worked in public accounting think that you're going to be working around the clock in the office.
Well, you do work a lot because you're serving so many different clients. But I mean, I don't have to like tell somebody I got to go to a doctor's appointment, or oh, I need to take. You just put it on your calendar, do it, and get your work done. We need to get the work done. Nobody like, yeah, at this firm, nobody's like breathing over your neck, like looking. You just get your work done.
Like clocking your time, where you could, the time you log in your computer and got
Exactly.
you tied to all these virtual meetings back to back to back.
Yes, yes.
Well, that's good. So have you always worked in tax and international tax? Did you ever
Well,
want to venture out of that, or tell your career path?
I like it. I like international tax. I think, but my passion is, if you probably go back and pull up my grad school, if you write the personal statement, it said I wanted to work with nonprofits, minority businesses, and entertainers. That's what I wanted to do originally. And that's not the end of it. I still have some clients that are in those exact fields. I work with nonprofits here at the firm. I have, some clients that are actresses. I have some people in the entertainment business. I have real estate clients. So I still do all of those different things. But I really, really, really like the international tax group.
Well, that's good. So when you came on to PwC at the time, and that's where they were wanting to promote you, or actually get back to your story about finally being licensed, was it with PwC?
Yeah, that's with PwC when I was getting promoted to senior associate.
So did the salary come along with that? Did you see a significant difference once you were actually licensed and getting ready for this promotion?
Not in public accounting, because it's when you're at a public accounting firm, the expectation is for you to get your CPA. Like, you can't even get promoted to manager if you don't have your CPA exam.
Okay.
And so I guess if you want to take a step back, so it's not like maybe in corporate if you have additional license. It's the expectation is there. So if you think about the levels of public accounting, it's intern, associate, senior associate, manager, senior manager, director, partner. That's just the traditional roles. And so it's not like, oh, you licensed, you get an extra pay, but you do get a bonus. Most public accounting firms now say if you come in, if you start when you first start as an intern, and you either come in the door with your CPA exam pass, or you get it within your first year, you get like a $5,000 bonus. And so for me, when I got my master's, when I had to go back and get my master's, I just started studying for my CPA exam then. So I started studying when I found out I had to go back to school. I just treated it as a different class. So when I started with PwC, when they were like, do you have any questions at the orientation? I said, where do I get my bonus?
Let's start with that.
Yes. So I studied while I was getting my master's.
Okay, well, that's a good segue. So what review course did you use, and what factored into that decision?
I used Becker. When getting my intern, once you got an offer from PwC, the very next thing you got was your Becker review course. Like it was part of the package. And so I studied Becker. Like I said, I was getting my master's at the time. So I just took it. I just treated it like a second course, and I did the in-person classes. It was as if I was still in school.
Anyway, okay.
Anyway, and I got my master's at Georgia State, and I got my master's of taxation. And so while I was taking the exam, while I was studying, it was like, oh, I got another exam today, because of like I was in school already. Okay, so I used Becker because PwC, they paid for it. They gave it to you for free.
Got you. With the understanding or the expectation that you would be a CPA, right?
Exactly. Same thing here at Wyndham Brandon too. They give you access to Becker. I think now they're expanding beyond Becker because some people found out that other courses, you know, help them out, and so they will pay for other courses as well.
Give you options, depending
Yes.
on your style or what you prefer. That
Mm-hmm.
package. Oh, that's good to know. So it was included. So it wasn't any issue with paying out of pocket or renewing the materials or anything like that.
I had to pay out of pocket for my exam, and then when you start, you get reimbursed.
Once you pass. Okay. Do you remember mine, Sharon? If you had any retakes or what order you took them in? Yeah.
So I started off with FAR first,
Okay.
which is the financial course. Again, I don't know. I mean, I love Dillard. I'm not in any way like trying to like talk down my school because I love my school. But I don't know if I was quite prepared for the exam.
Mm-hmm.
I just started taking them. I think I looked at the course and I felt like I may have been kind of on my own. And I almost am kind of happy that I wasn't like psyched out by it, because I probably, knowing me, I would have been extremely nervous. I just was like, oh, I got to take this exam. And I studied FAR first, and I passed FAR. I remember, so I told you I was working at the finance ministry of my church. I remember fasting while I was taking the exam. So it was a way that I started also learning to like really like learn to read the Bible as I was studying.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my pastor about it, and I remember taking the exam, and I was like, oh my God, I done made this man fast for me, and I done failed this test. I just felt defeated.
Okay.
And I ended up, I got my results, I passed. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Okay.
So after I did FARM, the next exam I did was audit, I believe. And I remember taking audit. I remember when I took my audit in school, I would fall asleep all the time. It was so boring. Oh my God, it was so boring to me. That's how I knew I wanted to do tax. Mm. And so I had to redo audit. So in the middle of, while I was in grad school and studying for the CPA exam, my youngest brother was terminally ill with cancer.
Oh man.
And so I was actually back and forth in the hospital with him, like still trying to study and still take care of him and get my master's and all that. And so while I was in the middle of that, I focus was lost, and I lost focus, and I had to redo audit. And I ended up doing it again, and I passed when I was able to do it again. So I did audit. Then I can't remember if I did tax or BEC first, but I know the only one I had to redo was audit.
Oh, really? Well, that's great. That's your only retake out of all 4 of the exams. Well, that's fantastic.
So, like, yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that was a big deal until later on in life. I didn't know that was.
Yeah, some of us have multiple retakes and lose credit and keep track.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like I said, I'm glad I didn't have that as a backdrop for me, because I probably would have gone in overly like
stressed about it.
Yes, I'm glad I didn't have that as a backdrop. I just like, oh, this is a test I had to take. So yeah.
So I'm sorry to hear about your brother. During that time, did you have to take some time away from it, or step away, or did you really try to continue studying and be there for your family and your brother, or did you have to take a break?
I did. I took a break from audit, not like a long break, because I don't know how they do. I heard the testing is different now, but you could only take. Then it was like every quarter, and so I just retook. I think I had to take 2 in 1 quarter at one point because of that time. So he didn't pass. So that was 2009. He didn't pass away until 2010, and so I completed all parts before he passed away. I just remember studying one night, and he was able to come back home, and we thought he was recovering. And I remember him knocking on the door in my room, and he opened it. He was bringing me like a grilled cheese sandwich. I was like, "You always in here studying."
Oh,
yeah, I remember those moments. But I mean, I would be in the hospital like studying as well. I just remember my head wasn't in it at that time, and which I had to like redo because I didn't have time to study then. But then once it looked like he was getting better, I got back on track.
Okay, so you had the family there for support, and you felt like he was improving, and so you were able to kind of regroup at that point.
Yep.
Because I know that's tough. And again, we talk about the curveballs of life, and it seems like in the Black community, they seem to just come at us constantly.
All the time. All the time.
Which I think contributes to the low pass rates. Does
Oh, yes, most definitely. Again, I mean, I don't want to call it luck. I just been want to call it, it was God's blessing. That again, like I said, that I didn't, that I was able to complete it in that year. Maybe it was the way in which I did it. It could have been like the fasting I did while I was testing for the exam. But I know now, and I tell people all the time, get it done as soon as you can, because I realized that my story was just, it was just, what I call living under Christ's kindness. That's what I call love.